And we're live. Hi everyone, this is Amateur Gamer, and now we're returning to AG's Old World tutorial series, and this is attempt 2 at tutorial 2 UI. The first one had half of its audio gone, so I'm remaking it because I can't salvage it, and yeah. So, let's continue. Let's start from the top left corner. We have the menu. And if you hover it, it will show you quite a few of the settings you have for the game. So if you ever need to remind yourself about a couple of things, or if you want your friends to play with you because you have a, well, not play with you, but play on the same map, you do have a map seed you can use. As you can see above resource density. Below that we have year. So there are 200 years for the game, and each year represents a turn. So there are a total of 200 turns. And below that, right now we see Persia because that's our nation. But as you discover more nations, they will show up here. And beside it, it shows the points. And depending on your victory conditions, here I have all three enabled. You might want to be the first one to reach 52 points or double your opponent's points. I will talk about victory conditions in the future, but just know that this will give you an indication of how strong your neighbors are and who you should target and who you might be able to befriend and just trade because they're not that big of a threat. Next, F1, victory screen. It will show the points of every single nation, and they will also show ambitions. So the other way to win is to get 10 ambitions completed, and the first one to get that completed wins. That's all I'm gonna cover for now. F2, inheritance screen. Right now we just see our leader, but over time you will have spouses, you will have siblings, you will have children, you have grandchildren. You will see your family tree here. And it's pretty cool, and it could be random. Sometimes you have a small family, sometimes you have a large family. You never know, right? F3, the law screen. When you unlock certain technology, you'll have options to unlock certain laws, and each of these laws cost civics to unlock, and they give you specific bonuses. F4, religious screen. So if you have a religion and you want to adopt it as your state religion, you just go to, like, for example, let's say I found Christianity. And then I will use Civic to adopt it as my state religion, and then over time I will be unlocking all of these. Next, I don't know why this is in F5. F5 doesn't work for me, so maybe it works for other people. It's a log. For those who want to check certain things, you are able to do so either through text or through a more visual way of looking at it. Either way, it's nice to, maybe you missed something and you want to double check. This is a good place to look at it. And something that I have covered, because it's past tense, I have covered in tutorial 3 is that there's this option where if you hover over these, you get the tooltip. If you press your middle mouse button, you'll be able to lock it, and then maybe you want to know more, right? Melee, you can click your middle mouse button. I don't know what are the limits. I'm not here trying to crash the game, but that is definitely useful to lock your tooltip with your middle mouse button so that you can find out more. Next one, F6, we have the tech tree. I mean, pretty standard, right? It shows you the tech tree, it shows you what you unlock with each of these. And if you want to know more, middle mouse button, you'll find out the various things that are acquired by researching that technology. And of course, the pathing of it. F7, you have the city view, which shows all your cities, what you are producing, whether or not there's a governor, the family, population, and various other city-related things that I will cover, or I have covered, in the tutorial 3, your initial city. And when you hover over it, it also shows your nation bonuses, right? For Persia, those are all the bonuses you get. So that is also something interesting to note. And for technology, it also shows the available and discard pile. I will talk about those more in detail in the future. Just know that if you hover it, it's available there. And next we have the map overview, which is basically a top-down view. I don't know when you would use that. Maybe you have a slow computer and you want to process the turn faster, maybe. But what's more interesting, I find, is when you hover over it, you'll get this information about the wonders and the culture levels you need to build those wonders. So that is actually a pretty interesting thing to note. If you ever, I don't think it includes all the wonders though, because if I look here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Oh, it doesn't include all the wonders. So if you ever need to quickly check what culture level you need for that, and I'll talk about culture levels in the future, you can just hover over this. Then we have the help screen, F9, which is extremely useful. For example, if you want to know about the spearmen, you type it in, it shows up, it gives you valuable information. It doesn't give you everything that you necessarily need, but it gives you enough to be well informed on whether or not you want to get the technology for this unit, whether or not you want this unit, right? And then we have replay the actions, pretty self-explanatory. Next we have the resources, and just note that I will be covering the resources in their own tutorials. So I will have one about food, one about iron, so don't worry about that. Just know that here starting from the left, we have money, and know that all of these will tell you what you are spending and where you are earning your resources, so that it keeps you better informed, and it also tells you what helps you get more money or the respective resources. So we have money as a currency, we have food, and note that when you hover over food, iron, wood, and stone, you have the option to sell for money or buy with money. And maybe you want a wonder, maybe you want a certain unit, and you just lack the resources, but you have plenty of money. You could buy the resource, get the unit, and go from there, right? So we have food, we have iron, we have wood, we have stone, then we have culture, civics, trading, and luxuries, and all of these will be covered in their own tutorial as well, so don't you worry about that. And below that we have the spouse, heir, ambassador, chancellor, and spy master. And what you will notice is that as you progress through the game, you will have portraits under those to show who is what, right? So for the time being, when you start, you probably won't see these three until a bit later, but you should see an heir, you should see a spouse. And then next we move on to here. So we have characters that will show you your leader, your various other courtiers or characters that are operating in your nation. It should also show your spouses and your heirs. Actually, I guess these are not courtiers if they're not labeled as such. They're more advisors. I guess that's the better term. And then next, this screen will show you the families, your relationship to them, and religion. So what it will show is how many cities are converted to certain religions, and how the religion views you, which is a bit odd, but like I said, I will make a tutorial about religion, so hopefully I will cover that more in detail. But as you can see here, if you hover it, it will talk about families and family cities, family seats. I have covered in tutorial 3, so if you want to find out more about those, you could check that out. Next we have nations and tribes. So what will happen is once you explore more, you'll find tribes, you'll find nations, you'll find them here, and some useful information might be their military strength, their diplomatic relationships with you, and overall I will also make a tutorial for that about diplomacy. Next, what will happen is you will have cities. So you'll have a bunch of cities, and they will show what you are producing in those and the different yields that's being produced by that city. And if you get a lot of cities, it will get pretty long. I don't know if people like that view. I mean, some people might like to quickly check it out, but yeah. And then next, you have units. So as you have more units, you will have a ton of lists, and these pips are the movement. So there's a certain amount of movement these units can move. See, 3 more moves, 4 more moves, unless it doesn't cooperate. You get also 3 more moves, and you get the idea, right? You have all of your units available here. And then for the bottom left corner, we have a portrait of your leader. And just know that your first leader will be the same regardless, right? Through all your playthroughs, but maybe your heirs will be different. You might have a queen, you might have whatever, right? And depending on your laws. And if you press the middle mouse button, you can find out more about your leader. And below that, you have legitimacy. I will talk about that in the future. You have order. Also talk about that in the future. And then you have the various actions, right? So this one is decisions. This one is idle civilian units, which are basically workers. They might as well just say idle workers. Actually, no. Civilians can also be something like settler. I just don't know if they're considered that. And then you have idle military units, idle scouts and naval units. And then you have idle cities, which means that, for example, in my capital, finish producing the settler, and it's idle because it's not producing anything, it's not doing anything, so this will show up, and then you could end the year. But generally, I think you have to complete all the actions first before you could end the year. But usually you conveniently have this tab which will just do everything, right? Next unit, research, it will do all of it for you. So even without using these, you just focus on this tab. It will basically get everything that you need done. And then here is basically the actions that happened in the turn, right? You will see this in your log where it's more colorful. You see a bunch of things. So that will be what shows up here. Maybe you produce a unit, maybe something happened, like a wonder was built, whatever, improvement improved. You get the idea. It's just your notification. Then for the bottom right, we have our minimap. And as you can imagine, you can click on the minimap, and then you have zona control overlay, which doesn't really apply here, but for combat, zona control will matter. And then we have danger overlay, which shouldn't matter right now, but yeah, danger overlay should also apply during war. And then you have city connection overlay. So what that means is that if you have a city, if you settle a city that's part of, like, in the green, like as you can see, this city site is out of it. But depending on your borders and such, if it's connected, then you'll get the bonuses for city connection. Otherwise, you'll have to build roads to just connect the green to the yellow of the city. But I'll talk about that more in the future. And then you also have N, which is basically resource overlays. That shows you, right, you have goats here, you have gems, you have pearls, If you want to quickly find where are all the resources that are revealed, you could do that so that you know to improve them. And then finally, the last one at the bottom right, which is just right behind the build text, you can shrink it if you don't want it. Honestly, I keep it on because it's kind of useful to look at it, but maybe you don't want to. And that, oh yeah, one other thing is when you move your mouse button, you'll see right beside the menu map, it will show you the terrain, right? I mean, it even says freeze tooltip middle click. So whenever you need information on certain things, you can hover over them, freeze them to find out what you need to improve them. Like fish needs fish nets, and they give these kind of yields, and the owner and whatever. And the last thing I want to cover is this ambitions. So earlier I said you need 10 ambitions to win. You'll have this ambition counter, and what happens is below it you will see the ambitions, and some of the ambitions might have legacy under it, which means that it was an ambition of your previous leader. You can still complete it. It just means that it was from your previous leader, and if you complete 10 of those, 10 out of 10 before your opponents, you should win if you have ambition victory enabled. So that is it for the UI, just quickly covering everything. There's quite a bit. It's pretty overwhelming, but hopefully the audio works out well, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. So thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you have a good one.